Today we're going to cook the perfect steak. It's something that everyone can do at home, it's easily adapted, and it's a surefire way to get good quality cooking into your home every time you cook a piece of steak. First thing, let's talk about the meat. There's a couple of things we need to look out for when we're selecting the meat for the steak. If you're pinching the pennies and tightening your belt, price is definitely a thing to look at. But if price is no object, if you're treating yourself, if it's a Saturday and you're cooking for loved ones, I always go for a beautiful piece of bone-in ribeye. You've got a lovely thick rib cap, which is like a fatty piece of meat that hugs the ribeye. The marbling through the meat is strong, it's beautiful, like little veins and rivers of flavor flowing through the meat that you can see. I've had this out of the fridge for about 40 minutes and we're looking to lift the temperature from 21 degrees, which is room temperature, to about 56, 58 degrees, which is a strong medium rare. You'll notice that my steak is slightly dry. That's because I've had it out of any plastic. I've had it drying out in the fridge to make sure when I sear that steak, I haven't got any nasty moisture or juice that would come out of that steak during the vat pack or packing process. A nice dry steak from a great source is where you want to be before you season this. And when we're seasoning the steak, we just want to use salt. Good rock salt or fine salt or kosher salt or flaky salt, a salt that you like the flavor of. Salt does have a flavor, so it's important to taste it. We're looking for something natural, something balanced, and something with great quality. And you just cover it. Cover the whole thing. One side, flip it over, cover the other side. Take your steak, mop up on the outside. So you end up with something that's completely encrusted and well seasoned. Now this steak is a simple affair. We're looking at butter for flavor, garlic and thyme. You can put other aromats in there, but I like to divide the flavors for different individual meats. So if we're going lamb, we're talking rosemary. If we're going chicken, we've got thyme and garlic, but there's bay leaf, there's lemon. Pork, garlic, sage, all these different aromatic flavors will complement the meat that you're cooking. For beef that's good quality like this, we're talking thyme, garlic and butter. That's it. Now, cast iron is a great pan to use when you're cooking meat, but if you're working on an induction stove or a halogen hob, sometimes you get hot spots in and amongst that cast iron base. So what you're looking for is a pan with a great bottom, a thick bottom. This will ensure even cooking temperature throughout the searing of that steak and make sure the crust and the caramelization is as consistent as it should be. Dry pan, heat on. We want this pan to be hot when the steak goes into it because we're searing the flesh. We're caramelizing the proteins on the outside of that steak, turning them into sugars and making them golden brown. That's a process called the Maillard reaction, the caramelization of meat. And to do that, we need a searing hot pan. Make sure your pan is dry when you're heating it up. If you put oil in your pan, heat it up, the phone rings, the dog starts barking, the kids start crying, you walk away from that situation and you've got a hot pan heating up with oil, it's a fire hazard. Also, you don't want your oil to turn carcinogenic. My pan is smoking, now we'll add a tiny bit of oil. You just roll that around the base of the pan to make sure every inch is lubricated. Then we take our steak, mopping up the rest of that salt, we go straight in. We want that sear, we want that heat, we want that connection with the meat, touches the pan, and you hear that first layer of moisture drawn out by the salt, and that's the sizzle, the moisture evaporating inside of that oil. One thing I do to my steak, which not a lot of other people do, is I rub it and roll it very gently around the base of the pan. And what that does, that picks up the caramelization that's getting stuck to the pan. The caramelization generally always sticks to the hottest part of that scenario, whether it's a hot pan, the oil, or the steak itself. Now to deglaze that caramelization, you roll and rub the steak around the base of the pan, and that excess moisture from those little bits that haven't been caramelized lifts that flavor up and sticks it back onto the steak. After about 3 or 4 minutes, we're gonna lift up and just see that base caramelization, beautiful golden brown, get it flipped over. Now the reason we've got such a good crust on that steak so early on is because we've dried it off overnight in the fridge, because we've seasoned it well, and because it's hit the hot oil on first contact to that pan. And now we've caramelized both faces of this steak, we're looking at doing the outside. So grab the bone, roll it around the pan, and we're beginning to fill in the gaps and make sure that meat is completely encased with that caramelization. Now at this stage, our caramelization is good. Turn the pan down slightly and get our aromats ready. Gonna take some garlic, break it open, down to the board, and just crack it. And we take our steak onto the side with the temperature turned down slightly because we don't want it to burn. Add your butter. Once your butter's in, you go in with your garlic and just nestle that thyme on top of the steak. What is the point of cooking it with the bone in? The point is that bone acts like a radiator to warm, slowly guide the temperature through that meat so you end up with an evenly cooked, flavorful piece of steak. And in order for the temperature to go through the bone, we need to warm it up. That is why we baste. So allow that bone to pick up that temperature. Now what you want to do is angle your steak so it's sat on that bone, because the most aggressive bit of heat coming from this situation at the moment is the pan. Then we finish off the cooking in a 100-degree oven. Why don't we put it in a hot oven and rest it? Because you've got more control. It's a gentler way of teasing the temperature through that meat, making sure every inch of it is perfectly cooked. And at this stage, we've got our aromatic flavor in the butter. The butter is nappade all over the steak. We don't want to kill those beautiful little perfumes in a raging hot oven. That's been in there for about 25 minutes. Now you'll notice there's no smoke pouring out of the oven. There's no sizzling in the pan. This is a gentle, nice, comforting heat, pushing the temperature through that beef, perfectly cooking it without any grey lines around the outside. All that's left to do is rest it on the board for about 5 minutes. Easiest way to check the cooking is one of these, a temperature probe. Now for beef, 45 is blue, 50 degrees Celsius is rare, 55 is medium rare, 60 is medium, 65 is medium well, and 70 is well done. We're looking for about 52, 53, because by the time this thing's rested up, we're going to be sitting about 56, 58. So you want to probe the thickest part of the meat to make sure that by the time that temperature's seeped through, every inch of it is cooked perfectly. Go straight into the middle, and we're 53 bang on. Now all there's left to do is carve it up. So with the bone in your hand, what you want to do is place your knife against the bone and hug it as you slice down through the meat, taking it off. Now once you get to the bottom, there will be a little piece of the spine poking out, so angle your knife away. This bit for the dog or for the chef. With a really sharp knife, just slice through. Then what we're looking at is a perfectly cooked, beautifully tender steak. Let's take that stunning flavour out of the pan, nappy it back over the top. A little flicker of sea salt over the top, and that is a perfect medium rare steak with a technique that you can take and adapt into your own kitchen. My 101 of ribeye on the bone. How they go?